Hello, everyone. I have a very beautiful, beautiful surprise for you today. I have a beautiful guest. This is Dr. Saida Désilets. Hi, Saida. So I've been following Saida's work for some time now, and this is actually a very beautiful moment for me because I get to talk to her in person, and everybody here gets to enjoy. Okay. So I want to read to you a bit about Saida before we dive into our discussion. Okay. Saida Désilets, PhD, is an international advocate for conscious, integrated sexuality through the understanding of our erotic genius. She has spoken in over 13 countries worldwide, apparently also in Romania, including at the Kripalu Institute, Mama Gina School of Womanly Arts, and the St. James Church in London. She has guested on a variety of radio shows where she has talked passionately about her art of succulent living philosophy. I love that. Also, she has been featured in such prominent magazines as Nexus and Rêve de Femme. She was a co-contributor of the best-selling books of Dr. Christiane Northrup and Dr. Rachel Abrams. Saida supports women to deeply understand their sensual, sexual nature and encourages them to self-define what sexuality is for themselves. Wow.
Yes.
Welcome.
And since then, I've actually done a TEDx talk on desire as well. So I've been very busy and I wrote a second book. So it's been a very productive time and I'm really excited to be here. And when you sent me your questions, I was like, ooh, this is going to be a juicy conversation. So looking forward to it.
Yeah. So I read Emergence of the Sensual Woman, which I understand that was your first book. I didn't get to Desire, but I actually got to read something else. I wrote to your staff and they gave me your PhD or your doctorate thesis on the Saida Désilets method. Yeah.
Yeah, very nice.
Yeah. So that was a very scientific plunge for me into your world.
Yes, that is very academic, but sometimes we need to go there in order to create solid ground from which the mystery of normal life can emerge and we can understand it a little better. Yeah.
And I actually got a little bit of insight into some of I had heard of your story with a relationship that made you become aware of how you were relating, how you were interacting, giving yourself away to somebody that maybe didn't really value you. And then with the healing sounds, you also wrote that in your doctorate thesis. That was, wow. So very academic, but also a very personal note, which I could relate to.
Yeah, very nice.
Yeah.
I think it's important when, especially in the realm of sensuality, sexuality, that the actual researcher is also researching themselves, because the way in which you look at something is usually coming from where you're embodied. So if you're afraid of sexuality, you're going to be inspecting it in a very different lens than if you're exploring it and enjoying it and discovering what it's all about. So
yeah. So walk us through your story. How did you first discover the Jade Egg practice? And how was that story?
Yeah, my story begins kind of intensely because it was with a doctor, a surgeon, when I came out of an emergency surgery, saying I had 2 weeks left to live and to put my life in order. And you know, when you're young and you're told that, it's very shocking because you don't relate to mortality when you're young. Obviously, I didn't listen to the surgeon because that was a long time ago. But that choice in that moment, I either chose to believe my surgeon, my doctor, that I had 2 weeks to live, or I could defy them and choose to live. But the path to live was going to be an initiation. And the process of learning about my body, learning about my sexuality, harnessing it, like cultivating that as something valuable, brought me to the practice of what's known as the Jade Egg practice. At the time that I was exposed to it, my body didn't like the practice. In those days, it had been designed by 8 men, the particular book that was offered, and the practice itself felt very foreign to my feminine body. And I was very, very sensitive post this violent rape experience to anything like invasive and intense. So it led to me developing my own method, which then led me to teaching other women because they were like, I don't know what you're doing. I just want to do it. Whatever you're doing, I want to do it. And then eventually is why I got the PhD, is nobody's really going to take me seriously if I don't have credentials. So that was the reason eventually to get a research degree and solidify what I was witnessing across the world, Liana. Like, it was amazing. Just it doesn't matter who the woman is. If you give her permission, you create a frame where she can explore herself safely, she will always come back to her own erotic wisdom, intelligence, and genius. She will always find her way home back to her own sovereignty. So that's what I was looking at more than the egg technique, even though initially that was kind of exciting. It was more the impact on the psychosexual side that was intriguing to me.
Yeah, I agree with you. Okay, so I'm gonna stick with the structure because when I'm too excited, I go all over the place. So I was curious, the next thing that I wrote here, how long after you discovered it did it take you to realize that the young approach wasn't right for you? Like, or what happened into your body? How did you figure out this isn't working for me?
For me, it was very easy. I mean, when I put the egg in, initially the way the egg was taught was you just put it in and you push it in and then you do some exercises. And so that particular way, that first experience of just pushing it in like a tampon or whatever, my body went, hell no, and just it went flying across the room, like it just ejected out of my body. And I was like, oh. So then I didn't come back to the practice for a while. And then the next time I came back to it, because I didn't have any other type of instruction, tried again, pushed it in again, and out it went flying again. So this kept happening over and over again. Finally, I was like, I've got to do this differently. This is not working for my body. And that's when I changed the style from a standing position to initially a lying down position.
Okay. Sorry, the flying sounds like I've seen videos on YouTube with women in Thailand who are thrusting, well, I don't know, something, from their vagina. I'm not sure what, but they break balloon balls.
Yes.
And it's like, well, I'm guessing that was not what you were doing. So
that was not what I was intending to do, but it was what was happening.
Okay. Okay. The next question you just answered. So I was curious how or what happened in your body or in your experience that opened the path for your specific yin approach, but you just said it. So
yeah, but I also want to share that, okay, so it wasn't only my healing. What also informed the work was when I started to share it with women. We don't have identical bodies. Everyone's made very uniquely. So as I was sharing what was working for me, it wasn't always working for the women. So I had to, right there in the middle of class, really feel into someone else's body and try and sort out, how do I say this so they get the same sensation I'm experiencing? And so that actually, it was the interaction with real women of all ages, all different kinds of problems and celebrations, that led the work to get really refined, because I was testing it with a lot of different women and getting direct feedback and having to adjust so that it actually worked in the feminine body.
So basically, when you were traveling to speak in different countries, you were also doing events?
Yes, exactly. I was teaching probably like 20 weekend retreats a year at that time.
Ooh. How is the current period going for you and for
I stopped doing live events probably back in 2008 when there was the first economic crash that happened. And at that time, I also had already some stuff online, and that skyrocketed. I did really, really well. The crash was terrible for a lot of people. For me, I did really well because I had a product that people could use at home. And so then I just, at that point went, okay, I need to focus. And then it made sense because I can't reach that many people. Live events are expensive. They take time, they take effort. You've got to fly places. For people also, it's an investment to do that. when they can learn out of the comfort of their home, they don't have to even get out of their pajamas. They can stay in their own bed if they want. They can, there's a lot more ease because this is an intimate practice. Somehow there's more ease. Now, there is something beautiful that does happen when we're in person together, of course, something magical. But when the in-person stuff started to shift, then it made sense to do that. And obviously now with what we're facing, it's also very useful that I already had developed that platform. So yeah.
One thing that I'm jumping a bit from the structure because I remembered as I was following you throughout the years, I found out you were doing a 4 nights somewhere in Africa with women. That was a wild event in nature.
Yes.
Can you share a bit about that?
Yeah, so that's the one offering that I do that's not directly related to sexuality, but it is related to bringing online our intuitive, instinctual nature a lot more, the feminine wildness in a very natural way, not something you act, but something that emerges naturally when you're put in the right environment. So the South African safaris, it's 2 weeks. We go and we first detox from Western civilization by living in the Kosa village, in those villages, and meet elder women, the matriarchs, the Sangoma, which are the healers, and we hike every day. It's just beautiful land. So we're kind of detoxing our comfortable life. Everyone sleeps together in one hut. And then from that luxurious experience where there's no running water, you just eat whatever is available there, we go to the wilderness, which has nothing. You're literally sleeping on baboon ledges. There's no tents, no cars, no vans, no jeeps, nothing, no electricity. You carry everything you need on your back, so you bring very little personal stuff, and you meet yourself in a way that's unshakable. You will never, ever lose this profound, intimate connection with yourself, but also with life. So I absolutely love those trips, but with the pandemic, it's absolutely been impossible to do that. So for the last 2 years, I've not done that, but previous to that, the 7 years before, I was doing that every year.
I'm sure that will open up again. It can't.
Yes, I mean, it's so magical. It really is.
What it sounds to me is like your own version of a vision quest.
Yeah, in a way it's like this because also I implement inquiry. I implement 2.5 days of complete silence once we are in the wilderness, which for a group of women, that's actually very difficult. Women love to talk. And so we have the Zulu guides, and we resort to making sounds. Clicking sounds is a way of communicating because those sounds don't alarm the animals at all. Whereas the human voice is very alarming. So if you need to have the group stop, or you need to tie your shoelace, or you need something, then you learn how to click. And then you point and you gesture, like there's a rhino over there, or there's an elephant there, or I see a lion track. It looks pretty fresh. So we have like, it's really amazing. Yeah.
It sounds like it. This is one experience that I do wish for myself. So I can't wait for everything to get unstuck again, because it will. And
yes,
that's one experience I look forward to.
Fantastic.
Yeah. When I first heard about this, it was before I tried to do a vision quest, but I was on my period, and this was a Lakota sourced practice.
Okay.
And the guide there said, no, you're on your moon time. You stay here. You can't even stand by the fire. You just have to be with yourself, but not on the mountain. So I'm guessing there you're still in the group, right? You're not separated.
You can't separate. If you separate, you'll get eaten. So we have to coexist as one body, which is really an incredible learning, because Westerners, especially, we have a lot of sense of sovereign space, and we're very independent. We forget that we're interdependent. So for example, if somebody gets extra hungry and sneaks and eats a bunch of the food, everybody suffers the next day because that thing is no longer available. So you can see kind of your direct impact on the ecosystem of both the community and nature very, very quickly. So it teaches you this beautiful interdependence, awareness, and consciousness. So yeah, it's an amazing experience, really.
Especially for women.
It's only for women. I find when women are around men, they behave differently. So if I want them to go really deep, I need to remove that kind of stimulation of the masculine, which is lovely, but there's some work we need to do on our own. The guides are men, but they're like brothers, and they're like priests. They really they protect us, they provide for us, and they hold sacred space, but they don't really get involved with what I'm doing other than leading us through the wilderness and keeping us safe and feeding us.
Okay, that sounds beautiful.
Mm.
Okay. Here's something that I was really curious about. What was it like to find and commence collaboration with gynecologists? Because I know that you do.
It came in a very interesting way, because the first one, I've had many doctors do my programs, but collaborations didn't start till a lot later. I think around 2014, 15 is when I actually more started the collaborative experience. Prior to that, there would be referrals from doctors to send their patients to me, and I would send my clients to the doctors, because I think that's wise to have a team that supports people. But the actual research collaboration was a student of mine. She's a luminary gynecologist. People come from around the world to learn from her. She's so in love with female pleasure that she won't do particular surgeries the traditional way, because she knows it harms the pleasure system. So she invents brand new surgeries that are like miracle-based surgeries that don't hurt the pleasure system within a female body. So people come from all over the world to learn from her genius. And she started off as a student. So being a student and watching what was happening, she approached me, and I agreed with her. I said, yeah, we definitely need to do something together. It's important. And so we started then having her come to my more advanced retreats, and she would give pelvic exams, but in a very sacred way, in a special way where women, she put a camera inside, and you would have like a little iPad, and you could see yourself, and you would learn about your anatomy very intimately. And she would take you through like the function of each part of your sexual anatomy, and a really beautiful reclamation for everybody. And because she was doing that, and she's a research-based doctor, she was taking notes. And so over the years, she started to notice something very specific emerging in my students compared to the thousands of regular women she was seeing. So we actually have written a collaborative paper. It's not yet peer reviewed. Once it is, we will publish it. But it's pretty exciting results that we've had collaborating together.
Yeah. Okay. I'll definitely dig my teeth into that.
Yes, when it's ready, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Another thing that I saw, and I know at the time you did also a discussion with Layla Martin, for everybody else here. How do you feel about GOOP, the famous platform that promoted the use and sold Jade Eggs, and then the backlash that it generated throughout time?
Yeah. As with anything that is sensational, you never get the depth of something. I don't care what it is. So if you sensationalize, I don't know, hemp smoothies, you'll still not get the depth of what the hemp smoothie really is about. You just get the surface level, and then people say, oh, the hemp smoothie shit, it doesn't work. And then all the people who are nutritionists who know about it, they're like, what, are you crazy? Of course it works. But the discussion stays very superficial. So the thing that I did not appreciate about GOOP is they weren't willing to do due diligence and actually speak to real professionals who understood the work. They just went with who was the most popular person to speak to. And unfortunately, I think 99% of what's out there around the Jade Egg is misinformation. And I can tell because it's always exactly the same information. I know which book the person read or which school they went to learn it. And there's not a lot of depth. So GOOP actually had approached me to purchase eggs from me because they knew it would be a big thing. And I basically said, unless you provide like a handout with how to care for the egg and how to properly insert the egg and how to use it properly, I won't sell you my eggs. They're like, no, we don't want to educate the women. We just want to sell them eggs. So I was, I lost a lot of business with that decision. That was a stupid business decision. But in terms of integrity, I felt really good about it because the intimate part of a woman's body should not be treated like drive-through. The depth of impact, the connection of the vulva and our psychological well-being, let's say, these two centers, they're actually quite connected, and there's not enough research to really demonstrate that, but I have seen it over the 20 plus years I've been teaching that, you know, you can't separate how a woman feels and what she believes and all of these things from what's going on in her vulva, and vice versa. If stuff's happening in her vulva, say an imbalance of some kind, she's going to go through a lot of emotion and thoughts about herself or about sex or about life in general or relationships. So that's a very dynamic, interactive system within the female body. And it's the thing with GOOP is it was just very surface level. Let's sell this, you know, thing to women. And then they were making a lot of promises around this egg is going to heal all your emotional stuff. It's going to heal this and this and this and these. And I think it's an incredible disservice to women to put all the power in an egg when the power is actually inside of them. And so that was my main complaint. And again, the positive is that all the sensational stuff made Jade Eggs more popular, so more women became aware of this option as a way to train their bodies and get to know themselves. Unfortunately, the majority of stuff that women are exposed to, I call it drive-through or make egg, the make egg movement. So I just keep praying and knowing that women will keep searching deeper and deeper to get better and better knowledge. At first they might, you know, try something and they're like, I'm not sure about that. And then they'll eventually find their way to the truth. And the truth is actually in the woman's own body versus, you know, what's out there anyways. So
if I may share here something that my Tai Chi teacher told me. This was in 2014 winter. She did not study with Mantak Chia. She has different masters. I forget their names. I never met them, but I read her book and I studied with her. And she did, just in Romania, this is where she's based. She used to do Jade Egg practice events for women. And she said after a while, she decided to stop because at least at the time, women just came for the physical stuff. And if she wanted to take them further into awareness, awakening the intelligence, as she called it, of the vagina, the uterus, so your entire midsection, basically, women didn't resonate. They just wanted the techniques, learn tricks to do, and then go and enjoy themselves with men. And yes. She was disappointed in that approach.
I understand. So the difficulty with anyone who comes from a traditional lineage and interfacing with a modern person is, and what I realized very early on is people don't want to be Taoists. They just want to feel good in their body, or they just want a better relationship with their husband. It's a disservice for me to force them to abide into this entire system of Taoist practice. So I stopped using Taoistic language. I stopped using poetic language. I started using just normal words, and I started to use things like sexual sovereignty, which is still kind of cryptic, but it's more easy to understand than if I'm going like, open up the chi of your heart and connect it with the chi. Like it's too poetic for a modern person. It's not effective. And as a teacher, you want to be effective. You have to be less attached to the structure and more attached to the transformation of the student. So I really shifted my approach. And then I obviously started to look into the medical side and the neuroscience side. And there were a lot of pieces that were missing from these traditions that are wonderful traditions, but I also wanted to understand it in a modern way. We live in a very, very high stress world right now. Most people are not going to take 6-9 hours a day to like massage their breasts and do these deep practices. They need an immediate way to down regulate their stress levels so that they even can feel aroused, so that they can even function hormonally. So there's a lot of other concerns that I have found. And if a person wants to go deep and have a more spiritual or psycho-emotional journey, it will happen. And all of my students, they start out, I want to be, you know, the sex goddess, or I want the multiple orgasms. Like they start from that place, but over time, when they're around me long enough, without being forced, without being coerced, they start to settle and they start to understand, I have an essence. I want to marinate in that essence. I want to trust myself. I want to understand what pleasure is outside of just a mechanical experience. These are things that grow very gently. So I hold the possibility for everybody, but I don't push an agenda of that. And at the same time, I would feel I would do tremendous disservice if I wasn't speaking up, because like I said, there's so much crap being offered to women, and it's dangerous. So I feel like I'm obliged to share my wisdom and knowledge and embodiment. Otherwise I do harm by not sharing. So that's a little bit how I feel about that. And it was a tough decision to switch gears, because when you're in a lineage, you're really trained. This is how it is, and these are the step-by-steps, and these are the levels and stages, and absolutely. But there's less than 1% of the population that's going to want to do that. And I want to change the world. I want all women to feel empowered, not just deep practitioners. So that was a huge career decision. I myself am a very deep practitioner. Anywhere from 2 to 6 hours a day is my practice. It's a whole variety of different things that I do engage with, because I really believe that if you're going to teach this stuff, you have to be embodied. You have to speak from your visceral knowing, not just hear concepts.
And you spend a lot of time in nature, correct?
Yes, as you can see, I love to live in nature. And there's a reason for that. Dealing with the normal reality, let's call it, it's very stressful. People don't live high quality lives. So when I come into contact with people who are very, very stressed, I have to be calm. Most people are in a state of trauma, some kind of amygdala firing issue. I have to be centered, calm, benevolent, caring. I can't do that if I also am caught up in the thing. So I don't tend to obsess over the news. I inform myself more through the rhythms of nature. And I think that makes me a really effective, let's say, counterculture creatrix, has it been called?
Yes, you use that a lot. I remember also hearing that, counterculture creatrix. Love that.
Mm-hmm.
One of the very frequent things that women that reach to me, either from my country or online from all over the world, is their need or desire, because of a lack of vaginal orgasms. And also sometimes when men write to me or reach out to me, they want to give their partners vaginal orgasms. I would like your take on this.
Yes. So let's consider that our pleasure system. So the vulva has a system of pleasure. It's not independent parts that don't communicate. It's all interwoven. We already know that it's interwoven with how we feel and how we think. So if we're already thinking we're broken, we need to fix something, it's a lot harder to access pleasure. If we're stressed, we don't feel good or happy, or we're judgmental about our bodies, that's another layer of inhibition that comes into play. So now even more the vulva is like, I don't want to open, right? So we've got those layers. Then we look at the physicality, the actual tissues and nerves and all the different parts of the pleasure system within the female genitals. Most people don't understand it at all. They don't understand that, first of all, the thing that arises pleasure and can generate vaginal orgasm is engorgement. It's when all the tissues swell with a lot of blood flow. Now, regular sex, how it's done in porn, will not create engorgement in the female genitals. You can see that it's not doing that. And the techniques used in what people are learning from won't create female engorgement. And then there's different areas, different zones of the vulva that create heightened experiences of pleasure. So everything is very sensitized. And then there's areas that create deep relaxation. But people also are not familiar with those areas. And so they might just go for the excitation, which can cause a woman to like get stressed actually over time and not relaxed enough to actually experience the pleasure moving into her vagina. All women can have vaginal orgasms, but whether or not, I call it the sleeping beauty, gets awakened is in part what she does with her own body on her own time, but it's also how her partner interacts with her. So it's funny you mentioned that, because next month, I think we're releasing a course with a colleague teaching men exactly how to do that. Very, very specifically. I'm excited because there's going to be a lot of women having a lot of pleasure. So really excited to release that piece of information. But let's just say that you're a woman, you're on your own, you do have a partner, they don't know anything because it's just not working. So what do? The first place to start is with your own body. And so regular practice, regular self-pleasuring, regular, even using the egg regularly, all of this starts to prime your pleasure system to come online a lot faster. And the more you self-pleasure, the more pleasure you're going to have. The less you practice, it's harder and harder to have pleasure. And this escalates over a period of time. So when you're young, you can kind of get away with it. But by the time you're even in your mid-20s onwards, if you're not really accessing pleasure pathways regularly, they atrophy. That's how the nervous system works. Whatever isn't being used gets atrophied, and the things that get used a lot, they grow. So if you're used to always running stress in the system, that gets very strong and robust. It's very easy and good for you to be stressed because you're used to it. But it gets harder and harder and harder to relax into pleasure. So that's why I'm such an advocate for personal practice and exploring your own body first, and then you can bring that to your partner that's really wanting to support you. I'm just going to move a little bit because the sun is in my eyes and I can't see much. Just turn my chair just a little.
No worries.
Better.
Okay, another thing that I was curious about. How can a woman ascertain the quality or depth of a facilitator in their facilitation?
Well, that's a tough one because for some of us, we're impressed with how many followers somebody has on a YouTube channel, for example, or Instagram or whatever, not realizing that really good marketing and spending a lot of money on ads will position you as an expert, but you don't know anything. The best teachers I have found often are not the ones who are number one in the search engines, and some of my teachers are not even online. You can't even find them. So how do you discern that? The thing that I look at with the teachers, I notice my own body. How do I feel in their presence? Do they make me feel like I'm welcomed? Do they allow me to be who I am exactly as I am right now? Or are they saying things that make me feel less? There are a lot of female teachers who shame their students saying, what, you can't orgasm? Well, I can. What's your problem? I mean, I cannot believe people talk to their students like this. I just hear, this is feedback I get from people coming to me and saying that this was their experience, and I'm flabbergasted, but it's happening. So are you feeling empowered? Do you feel welcome? Do you feel relaxed? Is the person walking their talk? Meaning, outside of the fancy class that they're doing, how do they live their life? Are they in integrity? Look at their life in another way if you can. It's a little hard now with everything that happens with social media platforms because people aren't honest about what's really going on. What have they done? Have they contributed to the works of other people? Are they unique in what they're saying? Meaning, are they coming from a place of embodiment, or is it just parroting from books and other workshops and things like this? Because many students, and I train students now to be teachers in my method, so I do have a professional level training. But what I try and encourage is, here's the method, but I want you to filter it through your lens, through your language. And so embodiment, that's why it's called embodied psychosexual method. The embodiment piece is crucial, and you will feel that in your body. So the way I recognize a good teacher often is if a person's talking, they're moving their mouth, I can't hear them. Like, okay. Because what that is, if you look at a level of like frequency,
Mhm.
when something's in resonance, like when you're in nature, it's all resonant, feels good. Dissonance feels off, like something's not right. So when a person is saying things that they don't themselves embody, you can't hear them because there's dissonance between what your body is picking up, because we mostly pick up nonverbal language more so than what we hear. So your body's picking up this person's actually full of shit, but they're impressing you with what they're saying. And you're like, this doesn't make sense. They're full of shit, but they're saying all these impressive things. And I'm speaking candidly here, but I think it's important because we have to be able to discern. So trust yourself. My best teachers in my life, Liana, were the ones who showed me what not to do. And I'm so grateful that they taught me what not to do. I'm like, thank you. Thank you. And I didn't continue with them, but I did learn something. And I think that that's equally valid. And we don't need to chastise ourselves if we made a choice to go learn with something and then we realize, oh gosh, like what did I just do? But you learned something anyways, either what not to do, or I don't know, maybe you met an interesting individual that led you on a different thing, or there was one or two jewels that came from the experience. So we can always learn from our experiences, but just don't give your power away. A lot of teachers will ask you to sublimate your power in exchange for information. In this field, there are a lot of sexual predators or misuse of magnetism, both in male and female teachers. So just know that that's not part of learning. You should never have to have sex with your teacher or have to do anything of that kind of nature in order to learn the secret stuff. And let me tell you, you might think that you're special in getting the attention of that teacher. You're not. There's going to be like probably 100 more people getting the same attention. So our need to feel special can be our Achilles tendon as women. So we need to really look at that. And then we also need to know, what's my motivation? Why am I here? What do I want to get out of this? And can this person deliver that? Be a smarter consumer. What do you really want to get? And often if people want to work with me more privately, which is a lot more expensive, I'll do a free interview and I will tell them, I don't think you should work with me. I think if you want this information, you can get my book and then start with this course. But I don't think you should work with me privately. It's going to waste your time and money because I'm going to tell you what is already in the book. You might as well do that first. See if it sits with you. Are you motivated enough? And then once you have that foundation, we can talk again. I don't like wasting people's time and resources. And then some people don't want the book. They just want that direct transmission. And if their heart's in the right place, I might say yes, but it's not, I don't take on a lot of those type of students.
Okay. Good to know.
Yeah.
Let's see, what else did I have here? Oh, what is your response to one of the attacks / criticisms / disbeliefs that some OBGYNs brought to the practice of the Jade Egg? Meaning the Jade Eggs weren't found among artifacts of old imperial Chinese courts. As the very popular story goes, this practice dates back in imperial China.
Yes. So, I spent a long time trying to research those myths as well, and I never came across like the source. So, but there's mythology in all different traditions, Greek traditions, Egyptian traditions, Kabbalistic traditions, tantric traditions from India. There's always a myth about women putting something in their vagina and having a practice. If you think about ancient people, what would be the most important feature of the female body? It's fertility. It was so crucial to the ancient people. They had so many fertility rituals. Their lives were based on fertility. So it makes sense to me that women, wise women, would have created a way to enhance their fertility And pleasure enhances fertility. So they would have probably learned pleasureful arts. They would have learned at least how to regulate their menstrual cycles a little bit. You know, that's not out of the ordinary if you just think about how, if fertility is the primary, most important thing, you would focus on it, right? And there has been many traditions that claim that something was put in the vagina. Now, the thing with a lot of these traditions, female traditions, they're orally transmitted. They're not written. They're meant to go from initiated to those who want to be initiated. It wasn't necessarily common practice either. It wasn't a commoner would know it. So, and the reason for that is probably just time, energy, effort, attention. If people are just trying to survive and farm all the time, they're not going to have a lot of time to practice.
No.
Right? Maybe they would go to see a traditional doctor and they were having fertility issues and they would be given a practice to do to enhance the fertility. But the idea that, you know, there are special concubines that, you know, did this thing, that's also plausible if you just think about the nature of it. However, the sacredness of it and the like what I know was not it hasn't been passed on in a direct lineage. And a lot of what I learned was by listening to my own womb, my own body, and really listening deeply and moving my body in ways I'm like, there it is, that's the movement. I cannot be the only woman that's figured it out in the history of all women. So then what do? I orally transmit my embodied experience. This is how these things were done. Why do we need a legend to prove the validity of a transmission-based, embodied-based knowledge? Doctors who poo-poo this purely either just took that stand without knowing anything. I mean, a lot of the doctors who poo-poo stuff around GOOP, my colleagues research and they're like, they're beginner doctors. They're so green. They're fresh out of school. They have no idea what they're talking about. They're not respected yet in the field, but yet their opinions were chosen because they're controversial, but they don't know what they're talking about. How can you have a sound opinion on something that either you yourself haven't tried or you yourself have not researched? You cannot accurately say those things. It's true that things are not been researched, but female sexuality is underfunded and under-researched in so many areas, not just this area. But I also agree that we can't be doing snake oil bullshit information for women. It's dangerous. So I'm not against the doctors speaking out against it. I'm against the doctors like saying there's no value whatsoever. Right. So what I did with my method is I had gynecologists look at it, osteopaths look at it, pelvic pain specialists look at it, movement specialists look at it, physiotherapists look at it, and really examine it and tell me like where are the contraindications, what is okay for most bodies, what's not okay. And as far as I know, I'm the only course that is qualified by all these different types of professional backgrounds, because I took the time to do that and to really lean into, you know, is this working? Am I harming somebody? One of the results that I have to say, through being very due diligence in all the techniques, would be like rejuvenation, which is unheard of in the medical place. Yet my gynecologist colleague clearly mapped women in their 70s. She would examine them. They had 70-something-year-old pelvises and vaginas. And then after a period of time, 6 months to a year and a half, they would look like 30-year-olds inside. So that sounds miraculous, but it's not, because how we treat our pelvis is we just let them atrophy. But at any age, when you decide to increase the blood flow, to not only create tone, but really relax and open and soften this area, you're going to have a very different experience of your pelvis. And the cells and the tissues will respond to that extra blood flow, which brings oxygenation, which creates more innervation. So all of that, it's not really a miracle, but initially it looks like one.
It's just your body doing it actually its thing when you treat it properly,
Yeah, I
basically.
mean, if you were to, I don't know, go to the Midwest and think that that's how human bodies look, you'd be in shock when you end up at the Olympics and you're looking at these athletes going, how are these two different species of human? There's the people who eat the McDonald's every day and don't exercise, and then there's these super athletes. So what we don't realize with the female vulva is we are looking at best atrophied pelvises, at best under-exercised, malnourished sexual organs. And we've never actually done a study and looked at the Olympic athlete level of vitality and health sexual organs. And so I have donated my body in that sense to research. So I've been examined a lot and pictures have been taken and measurements, all this kind of stuff, in order to go, this is the human potential. When someone actually, if you work out, say you're just working out your arm, it's going to look very different than if you never used your arm, right? So you can then see a potential, not that everybody has to live up to that potential, but at least we know that being atrophied and having prolapses and having pelvic pain and discomfort, these should not be the standard of living. This is because we're not vibrant in this part of our body. We haven't known how to take care of this part of the body, which is again why I advocate proper education and proper use of the egg versus the sensational, I'm going to be the sex goddess, and let me just pop that in and get really tight and do a 300 Kegels a day. I mean, it's just very harmful attitude and practice.
True. I have a question. I think many women are going to be curious, but to the extent that you feel comfortable to share, what are the practices that you do those 2 to 6 hours a day?
I'm not comfortable sharing all of it because some of it are secret teachings, obviously. Everything from just the practice of sensualizing my life. So when I'm applying cream or having a shower, like just really sensualizing. And that's very, very important because in modern living, we tend to numb our senses, but I want my senses to be very alive. So that's a regular practice. And you can do that in ordinary moments when you're drinking water or eating something or just having normal interactive experiences with life. Sensuality is how we make sense of reality. So that's a really big practice and it's ongoing throughout the day, but there are obviously specific things you can do. Like I like to do the breast massage and I like to use the rose oil, but that's not the only way to do it. I'd still work with the egg myself. I tend to wear it every day unless my body's like, no, and I'm very much advocating to listening to the body. I also have a fitness program. I like to work out. I think it's very important to exercise and move, not just for the body, but for mental health. So especially with this pandemic, it's been crucial to like move the body. It's really good for the immune system. So I have that. And then I have some deep meditations that I do that not willing to talk about, but they're more on the, how would you say? They generate a lot of heat in the body. They generate a lot of like really strong connection, like anchoring the mind into the body and just being able, for me, I've trained my mind enough now, like I'm kind of scattered and playful with you right now, but if we went into a practice, I could go so deep that I wouldn't even budge if something huge happened near me. So there's that training of where's our awareness, and the beginner level of that, just where are you paying attention? Where is your attention? That is a practice. Can you recapture your attention from all the stuff that's stressing you to something that's actually valuable and important and worthy to you, and keep it on that even for longer than a few seconds? That is a huge practice that the modern human would benefit immensely from, and it directly translates into pleasure, because if you're off in your head or you're worried or you're all these things and you're not sensualizing your experience, you're not like breathing it in and amplifying it and noticing where your attention is, then you're not going to have the degree of freedom and pleasure that you could if you really paid attention. The other thing is having been able to train my body where I can feel is, say if my clitoris gets aroused, I can feel the whole anatomy of it. I can feel the glands, the shaft, the legs, and then I can feel and sense when the engorgement starts to happen in the urethral sponge. There's so much real estate from my mind that's been, built into the genitals because I spent the time paying attention to the vulva. And that's an amazing thing, because as women, especially say our partners maybe not as skilled, or maybe we're alone, we can self-generate so much more pleasure when we have the ability to pay attention more deeply to those sensations.
Yeah, I love the economical terms. Real estate, paying, very, very present oriented.
Yes, because I mean, that's the thing. It's like, this is what we're used to hearing. If I start talking to you in the poetic way of like, feel the goddess of pleasure like flowing down your spine. I mean, it's nice, but you'll be like, what?
Not always, but some
A lot
days.
of women, well, you're guessing, but if I tell you very specifically, like, I want you to feel the difference between arousal and relaxation. I want you to shift your state into arousal. Now I want you to shift into relaxation. And I have you keep doing this back and forth. You're going to get way more of a skill than if I'm telling you, like, feel the floaty feelings that move from one chi area to another. I'm really into effectiveness. I like poetry. I write a lot of poetry. But if I'm not able to, as a teacher, have you actually do the thing I want you to do, and you're just imagining it, I'm not effective. And a lot of people will imagine a sensation, but they're actually not feeling it. And so I think that's the difference for me in terms of use of language, and just making sure you're actually experiencing the thing that I would love you to experience.
I love that word. She's just pointing out what you're saying. Okay. So I have one more curiosity, and this is, I know that the first time I started working with my teacher, one of the women there asked this, and I remember her reaction. She had read from Mantak Chia around 2 practices. One was the breast massage and making your breast larger through massage. And the other one was about sublimating, I hope I use the correct term, sublimating your menstruation. So basically making it disappear.
Yes.
I remember the reaction that my teacher had, and boy, everybody, it landed like in the entire room. But I would love to know what's your take on this?
Yeah, so I mean, there's been layers of my journey with it. Because again, when I entered this practice, I wanted to be immortal. I wanted to be young forever. I wanted the hottest tits. I wanted like the greatest pussy. Like, I had all these desires, but over time, those became empty. And then over time, I started to understand breast massage is not about having large breasts. Breast massage is actually about starting to regulate the hormonal system and having time to actually open the heart, relax the intercostals, and having a deeper relationship with my body, with self-love. So that was a transition. So heart-centered sexuality became very important to me, because I realized if we're just goal-oriented in our sexuality, we're propagating the sex industry side of sexuality and not the sacred side of sexuality. So touching the breasts and loving our breasts exactly as they are is an act of self-acceptance, which will allow you to have more pleasure. Stimulating the nipples and the breast tissue is a preventative thing, because you're moving the lymph, you're allowing circulation, you're keeping this tissue healthier than if you never touch them. In terms of pleasure, when you regularly stimulate the nipples, you may end up building those neural pathways that allow a slight bit of nipple stimulation to relate all the way down into your vulva, and suddenly you have an orgasm that's connected. These are things that are the side effects. In terms of bigger boobs, I mean, some women have come to me and done the practice and they said, wow, Saida, like my breasts are really rounder, or they're more perky. But that could also be from the exercise that they're doing, and they're doing like 100 of these every day, it lifts everything. So at the end of the day, can we love and accept ourselves as we are? That's my query. And not only that, let's get out of the visual part of our body and have a sensorial relationship with the body. That's what breast massage could do for us, is start to create that very luscious experience of our beautiful bodies, versus it has to look this way and I want bigger boobs so that I can attract a guy. To be honest, ladies, a lot of men I talk to, they like small breasts. They really do. They're like, I don't want to, I don't know. I was so surprised how many men love small breasts. I'm like, okay, that many men like small breasts. Why are all the women wanting big boobs? I just, it's like, it's not.
I have a potential answer for that. They don't say that. They don't tell women that.
It's not just on the men though. There is an industry of making sure women are insecure. And what are you going to do? Okay, well, boobs are a symbol of feminism. Making them bigger makes you feel more feminine. I know a lot of women who are very athletic, they don't have boobs, or they breastfed for 10 years and they just want something perkier. That's their choice, right? But in general, if even with the implants, if you're not comfortable with your body, you don't love your body, you're not feeling your body, a lot of women end up with very numb breasts, no sensation, hardness of the breast when they get these surgeries. It's not enhancing their pleasure. It doesn't necessarily guarantee that the man they attract is going to stay with them. That having big boobs is not guaranteeing anything. So we have to go deeper than the surface for that practice. Now, in terms of sublimating the menses, there are different traditions, and different traditions believe different things. So you just have to understand that some traditions firmly believe in early menopause and other traditions don't believe in it at all. What do you want? For me, the main culprit of problems for women is more the PMS, the hormonal imbalances, than the cycle itself. The other thing I learned, because I did a lot of practice, I was able to stop my cycle a few times. The longest was a 10-week period, but I wasn't around any fertile women. So these practices were not designed for modern women living amongst a community. It was designed for nuns that lived far away from people and fertile women, so you can attain that. You know, what's in it in terms of sublimating that? At the end of the day, I really believe that wombs need to menstruate, and it's a sign of health and fertility. Now, if your cycles are too heavy, or you have a lot of pain, or they're too light, I mean, these are hormonal issues. So I think the practice needs to be directed less at stopping the menses and more improving like the emotional well-being of women hormonally, and the quality of the blood and the quality of her period. So over the years, I've gone from extreme pain, I mean, talking extreme, like laying on the ground, screaming in agony kind of pain, to now having literally orgasmic experiences where it feels like there's energy swirling in my uterus and it's just orgasmic 24/7 during that part of my cycle. And that wasn't achieved by me attempting to stop it. It was achieved through reorienting. I want hormonal balance. I want longevity and vitality. These are important. I want to be radiant from the inside out. And that's why I said in the beginning, if you're searching a teacher or a lineage, what are your intentions? And are they valid intentions? And can you go deeper with your intentions than just, you know, capturing a guy or being the hottest girl in your community? These are the things I push a little bit against with women, because the cheaper intentions won't carry you. If you're going to do these things, they take time. It's a cumulative practice. You're not going to get results overnight. It's like every day you're consistent. But here's the thing that I found: the thing that gives healthy menstrual experience is the same thing that makes you fertile, is the same thing that gives orgasmic birth, is the same thing that allows the menopausal transition to go really well. It's the same thing that gives you epic orgasms. So wouldn't we want to instead tap into the feminine mysteries, have a deeper right relationship with our bodies, and become more masterful of our own emotional selves, our psychological selves, but also like our sensual and sexual selves? And that's kind of, I guess, the progression I've come with this work is, what do you really want? And are you willing to do what it takes to have that manifest for yourself? And it's not going to come by rubbing your boobs, you know, once or twice a week for 30 seconds.
What you described sounds to me like the archetype of the priestess, but the one with the substance, like the true priestess that is focused on herself and cultivates her own power, basically from within.
Yeah, and I think as you're saying, these archetypes, the archetype of the priestess, the archetype, I mean, maybe you want to be more like the courtesan, but the sacred courtesan, and whatever your archetype might be, but understand that you're incredibly valuable and that you deeply matter, and that the greatest injury to the feminine psyche is for her to believe that her body isn't a temple and isn't worthy of worship, no matter what stage or state that it's in. And when we start to honor the body as truly our own temple, and we care for it that way as a sacred place, then suddenly we also notice the environment around us and other people, and life changes its quality. It changes drastically in its quality, actually, when we start to abide or live in ourselves like we matter and we belong to life, and that this body that we have is the temple we get to play with.
Okay, my apologies. My wolf is calling for me.
Okay.
Yes, I'm a mother of a wolf. Okay, so I would really love to do a follow-up with you whenever possible. I want to encourage all the women and the gentlemen here actually to write a comment under our discussion. And let us know what they enjoyed, what they would love to learn more, and we can build a follow-up based on this.
Very nice. I'm happy that he's contributing. He's very happy. Can we see him?
He wants to go outside. It's a him, yes. His name is Ivan.
Let's see you, Ivan. Come say hi. Oh, buddy. Hello.
He's 12. Yeah, he was abandoned in the street 12 years ago. So
it's time. Thank you for your time. And ladies listening, the last word I want to say is just you're an amazing being. Your body is worthy of your attention, and I hope that you enjoy sensualizing your experiences just a little bit more.
I do too. Thank you very much, Saida, for being here. I'll put a link to your channel under this discussion, and if anybody resonates with Saida, check out her stuff. If you resonate with me, check out the stuff that I have here, and also let us know what you thought of this, and we'll do a follow-up.
Okay. Bye. Bye, little